Welcome to the DLGF's webinar presentation of the 2023 Sales Data Submission and Compliance Review Processes. My name is Josh Jacobowski. I am the Information Systems and Data Analysis Division Director for the department. This is my second year doing this presentation. I did it last year as well. I'm hoping to be as just informative and helpful as possible on this, especially to the county assessors and county auditors and their staff that's listening. As Jenny mentioned, if there's any questions or things that pop up during the presentation, please go ahead and write those into the Q&A box. I'll try and answer those if we have time at the end. If we don't have time, if I go too long or whatever the case, please just leave us your contact information and I will make sure that I get your question answered for you and sent that to you as quickly as I can. I wanted also just to leave a little side note here that I've been fighting a cold the last couple of days, so I apologize in advance if I start coughing or something like that. I'm trying to keep it at bay with water, but we'll just kind of see how it goes. So with that said, let's go ahead and begin. So this is something that we are wanting to put on all of our presentations here in the future, just to remind folks, again, the purpose of this presentation that we're giving, we're trying to be as, again, informative and helpful as possible, but this is not legal advice, what we're presenting here. It's just an informative presentation. The Indiana Code, the law, always governs all situations there for that. What we're presenting here is not a substitute for the law. It's merely just some informative guidelines and hopefully some helpful processes for getting your sales disclosure filings submitted. Okay, also, before we get started, I mentioned my name's Josh Jacobowski. I'm up there at the top, but I also have two other tax data analysts that work for me and do an excellent job here in the data division. Deep Chapatwala. He handles most of the eastern counties for me, so we kind of split the state in half, straight down the middle as best we can. If you're on one of the eastern counties, you're probably used to communicating with Deep. He handles, again, just the data inbox as well as the different compliance reviews that we do over the course of the year. We've got the fall reviews, the spring reviews, in addition to the sales reviews. So Deep is going to be the contact for most of the eastern counties here in Indiana. And then W. Jones is the contact for the western counties here in the state of Indiana. They both do a phenomenal job for me. And even though this is last year was their first year, mine as well. We were all brand new last year. We've got a year under our belt and we're in good shape this year. We're pretty confident heading into this sales compliance season. I also wanted to just highlight especially that link there at the bottom, or that email at the bottom. I've got all of our other business emails listed there for me, Deep, and Delbia, but most importantly is that data inbox. If you have any questions, as I mentioned, if we don't get to them here at the end of the presentation, or if you think of a question after the presentation's over in a week or a month or whatever, please send it to us at that data inbox down there at the bottom. That's one of Deep and Delbia's primary responsibilities, is to monitor that inbox and get questions answered and make sure that we respond to those as quickly as we can. So if you have anything, any question that needs answered, or as you'll find out, there's some different things that actually get submitted to us via email. It comes into us via that data inbox. Okay, so just to give everyone a brief overview of the agenda for today, what I'm aiming to do with this webinar is three things chiefly. For the most part, or initially here, I want to talk about what items to consider as you complete your own kind of internal review of your county's 2023 sales data in preparation for submitting them to us, DLGF, via Gateway. There's a lot of processes and things you can double check first that will save a lot of time on the end if we can catch those mistakes early before anything gets submitted to us. There's just a lot of back and forth that needs to occur if we find that a county is non-compliant. So if we can avoid that at the beginning, and just go straight from, submitting your data and getting that essentially approved by us or given a compliant status, that's really the best thing that can happen. So anything you can do at the beginning to sort of eliminate some of the back and forth that needs to happen if we're in a non-compliant status is really going to save time in the long run. So I want to spend some time talking about that and just the different steps you and your office can take, excuse me, to make that data as clean as possible before it gets submitted to us. The second thing I'll be talking about is just then how that works when you've got the data already and you're ready to submit that to us. So I'll go through the actual website that you go to and how to upload and confirm your 2023 sales data in that Gateway Sales Application site. Finally, the last piece of this presentation, I'll talk about what we then do here at the department at the DLGF for the types of checks and reviews that we go through as part of our compliance review process and the feedback that we will then send back to you as part of that process. So, excuse me. Okay. So first point that I want to make is up there in that first, I don't know, sentence. It's not quite a paragraph, but up there at the very top where it says 50 IAC 26, that is a part of the Indiana Administrative Code, and it is a requirement that the sales data be uploaded on a monthly basis to the Gateway Sales Application site. We ask counties to do that as much as possible. We often have here at the state, we have interested third parties that are try to access this data. And if a county has not uploaded, then their data for a particular month or months out of the year, it shows up pretty quickly to these third parties that are accessing the data. So if everybody were to upload that on a monthly basis, I think that would not only look better for the state, but it would sort of fill in the gaps of these interested third parties that are accessing the data here that the state has. Secondly, the Indiana Code 6-1.1-5.5-3 is the kind of like it's the big requirement that we have to have all data submissions for the entire year. All sales data submissions need to be completely entered into the system before February 1st. So in other words, county assessors must submit all sales disclosure records that occurred in 2023 by no later than February 1st, 2024. Part of the reason for this is we want to make sure that we get those sales data reviewed and a compliant status given to that sales data before the ratio studies are turned around and need to be due in early March. So what a lot of the work that we do here with the sales data and the reviews and the compliancy checks that we perform on them is to help you get a good running start for that ratio studies done by the assessment team in March. Okay, so I mentioned the first part of this presentation would talk about the steps that can be taken or can be done on an internal level before you actually submit the data to us. So some suggestions that we have that will cut down on, again, the back and forth that has to happen if you get into a non-compliant status, is that while you're reviewing these sales disclosure records that have been entered in your sales disclosure software system, I would kind of go through this checklist and just make sure that all records have all of these different things in there. At least one buyer and one seller listed. Valid dates for all of the different date fields that are on the form, the sales date, the conveyance date, the transfer date, when the form was received, that sort of thing. Valid sales price has been listed there. Valid parcel numbers and state assigned taxing districts as required. Valid property class codes. If you can catch that before As I said, it really speeds up the process. It makes everything go a lot smoother so that our compliance review process will get done quicker, and we can get you that feedback quicker and then on to ratio studies. One other key piece here is that on that SDF form, when it is completed all the way, it's important that the question number 11 on that form, which just simply asks, is the form complete, is checked yes. If it's not, then that messes with things. It must be checked yes in order for the record to be included as part of our sales compliance review process. If it's not, we won't include that. So that's another thing, another bullet point, if you will, maybe even the most important one of something that needs to be completed in an internal review in your office before that data gets submitted to us. Okay. Having done this for a year now, I can say like last year, so well, actually earlier this year in 2023, when we were doing the sales compliance process for 2022, the part that counties were tripped up the most on, I feel like, was this sales disclosure fee revenue reconciliation section. This is a joint process that involves the partnership between the county assessor's office and the county auditor's office. And the numbers here, we want them to be as close as possible. So specifically, if question number 12 under the assessor's section of the SDF, state sales disclosure fee required, is checked yes, then the county auditor's office needs to verify that that fee was collected for that particular transaction. Does that's on an individual level. If we expand that out, and the more of those, the more discrepancies we see there between question 12 and question 7 on the auditor section, is the state sales disclosure fee collected? That's gonna, eventually that's gonna add up and potentially result in the county falling outside of the tolerance of the department's revenue compliance check. Again, last year, or this most recent sales compliance review process, this was the part that tripped up a lot of counties. So it's something that I would appreciate just paying attention to as much as possible this year, or before you submit the files this year, and we try and take care of a lot of that work ahead of time so that it goes a little more smoothly once the review process has been started. So there are certain sales disclosure transactions that are eligible to be assessed by the state sales disclosure fee, and then half of which is retained by the county, and the other half is remitted to the state as part of the settlement process. That happens twice a year. For county auditors, we need it to be verified that both the fall 2023 settlement process and the spring 2023 settlement process was completed with the comptroller's office. That's formerly the auditor of state, but the money for those collections was submitted to the comptroller's office. That is not something that comes here to the DLGF, but we communicate with the Indiana State Comptroller's office and get that information from them. So that is part of what we use as our compliance check, is we use the numbers that they have versus the numbers that we're seeing in the sales that are submitted to us. And when that discrepancy occurs, that's when we start to see, some counties fall out of compliance here initially on this review. So one tool that we use to help in this process is the sales disclosure fee revenue, the fund report. That gets submitted early on in the process, hopefully, to the department's data inbox. So I mentioned that data inbox kind of towards the beginning of my presentation when I had all of the different team members' names and emails listed up there. This data inbox collects a lot of the different forms and things that are sent to us. This particular one helps us reconcile any differences that we are seeing in the sales disclosure revenues. So it's important those get into us as soon as possible so that we have it available to us when we begin our review process. That second bullet point there, the fund report should provide a transaction log of state sales disclosure fees collected during the previous calendar year, so for basically all of 2023, and then also include the amounts that were remitted to the state during the spring of 2023 and fall 2023 settlement periods. Again, that is a document that we went through a lot last year, these different fee fund reports. It's important that we have those available to us in case we run into any problems with our compliance review process. We really ask for counties to submit those to us as soon as possible. So obviously it needs to wait until the end of the calendar year, the end of 2023, so that it captures all transactions that occurred then. But it's also important that we get that pretty early on. So we ask for that to be submitted to us in either early to mid-January, so that we have it available and have those collected so for the review process when those really start coming in. So once the county assessor's office has completed its review of the sales disclosure records and has completed the reconciliation process of the sales disclosure fee revenue with county auditor's office, once we've kind of done an internal review and double check things with the county auditor, then the county assessor's office should be ready to submit its sales data to the state. I think in years past, before we had a nice gateway or application, the sales application site that was just emailed in, same as to the data inbox, the data at dlgf.in.gov. That is no longer the case. All sales submissions must go through this application that I will be getting to here in the middle part of my presentation. So please just make sure you have a note of that. There's a process for it, and I'll be going into that in some detail here in a little bit. Lastly, please ensure that your sales data includes records for the complete 2023 calendar year. If there's a month missing in there, that's going to be a big red flag on our compliance review process. So double check things, make sure that you have the whole calendar year. And if you have done the incremental uploads of your sales data throughout the year, kudos to you first off, but you do not necessarily need to do another upload of all of it, of your 2023 sales data by the Feb 1 deadline. Like, it will keep the information that you've added incrementally over the course of the year. But if you want to, if it feels better that way to kind of have it all entered in at once as well, right before that February 1 deadline, that's perfectly fine. You can certainly do that, but it won't. It's not a necessary thing. It houses the data that has already been entered in there. Something else, and again, I don't think this. I know it wasn't something last year. It may have been the year before, back before I started here in the data division. But you do not need to submit or email the sales data separately to LSA, the Legislative Services Agency. I think that was something that was done in the past. They get it from us now, so we have the portal, that gateway applications website that all the data comes into, and then they get that from us later. So no need to separately email them. Okay. So that was the sort of first third of my presentation, talking about all the different things that could be done on an internal level before things get submitted to us. I'm now going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the gateway sales application and how to actually submit the data to us. So the gateway sales application site has the same URL that was used for the old gateway SDF site. We just kept the exact same, website name there, but that's what you'll use to access it. So the username and password that you use to log into Gateway, submit your PTBO annual report, all the different gateway features, is the exact same information you use for the SDF site. So just same username, same password as for Gateway. If this is something that is not been set up for you yet, if you're going to need a new account or password reset or anything like that, please send a request into the department support address. That's support@dlgf.in.gov. That will get a response the quickest. That inbox goes directly into our ticketing system, which gets sent then to the right person here at the department at the DLGF, and we can get that help for you quicker if it's emailed directly to that support website or support email address rather. So please just email that if you are needing any kind of account or password reset. Okay, so this is what it looks like. If you were to click on that first link, I'm going to go back a page real fast. So this first link that's up top here, the HTTPS gateway sdf-ifionline.org. If you were to click on that, or if you were to type that into your search bar or your web address, this is what would come up for that. You should see a page that looks just like this. So that home page on the new sales site is much more streamlined compared to the older one. How this was going to work is you'll need to first select the applicable sales year for which you need to upload your data files. And after you've clicked on the sales year, it's very easy to forget that. So I have to tell myself every time I get logged in, remember to click on the sales year. Then you click on your county name to the file upload screen. So what I'm talking about for sales year is right here. It's an easy thing to miss, but you need to make sure you do that. It's 2023, obviously. We're going to be submitting sales data for the year 2023. I had some instances last year where people were entering it into the wrong year, or they were uploading data into the wrong year. So make sure first that you have the correct year selected. And then once you have done that, you've selected that correct year, you click on the county name that is applicable to your county on. It should be whatever county you have access to. And then that will take you to the next page you need to help you upload your forms. So the file upload page on the new sales sites only accepts data files that are zipped. That's something that's important to remember there. If you try to upload just a single file, it won't work. It has to be in that zipped folder, and it has to be all 5 files at once. So I've got those listed out down there at the bottom. The sale disk, the sale contact, sale parcel, and then those 2 addendum files at the end there. But it needs to have all 5 of them in there, even if there might not be any records in those last 2 addendum files. You still need those files as part of the upload process. Otherwise, it won't accept it. And we'll go through kind of what that will look like on the next couple of screenshots that I have, what it looks like when you have a valid upload and what it looks like when you don't have or we have an invalid upload. So again, this is what it looks like here when you click on that file upload, or you get signed in, you've clicked on your county, you've selected the right year. What you'll go to here is this choose file button. You click on that, and then you'll need to find the wherever you have those zipped files saved on your computer, you select that, and that will upload into our system. So once you've chosen the file, you click that, you click upload, and something should appear right down here telling you whether that was successful or whether it wasn't successful. So what we're going to look at first is a successful file upload. So if your file upload processed successfully, you're going to again look for that bar right underneath there. There should be a green valid status under the upload status column. Additionally, if it was successful, you will be able to then download those files right back. You won't be able to do that if it was not successful. So let's get to my screenshot here that illustrates that. So again, I mentioned down here at the bottom, this is where what will show up after you have attempted a submission. What you're looking for here is that upload status, that green valid box that says, yep, everything went through. It was a good upload. We've got that data now in the system. And then also right here is where you can then download those files right back. Okay, it will, if you were to click on that, it will give you the files that you uploaded, so you can always just see what has been uploaded and what you have still then to upload later. This details button I'll get to here in a minute. It is not that useful for when there has been a valid upload. You can click on it if you want, but then it's just going to show each of the different 5 files that you uploaded with a green, like I don't remember the exact term, green valid button as well for that. But there won't be anything else to click on from there. So what that's going to be especially useful is when there is an unsuccessful upload. So if your file upload did not process successfully, you will notice a red invalid status under the upload status column. Additionally, you'll not be able to export the data set that the database attempted to process. Rather, there will be an NA listed under the download column. So it has to all go in, and then it will be available to be downloaded. If any piece of it doesn't work, the whole thing doesn't work. Okay, so even though you've got all 5 files zipped together, they're in a zipped folder, and you try to upload them, and if it says that 4 of them were good and 1 of them wasn't, the whole thing fails. It has to all work out. It's all or nothing. So if it doesn't upload at all, then you can't re-download them. So there's going to be that NA listed under the download column. As I mentioned in the earlier slide that I had there, that details link is going to be much more useful for when you have an unsuccessful upload, because that's a way for us to drill down and get more information on what happened, like why it didn't upload to the system. So again, this is the screen that you'll see. We've got that invalid upload status. Again, as I said before, you got an NA here that it didn't work. The upload didn't work, so you won't be able to turn around and download those files. This right here is what's going to be the most helpful when you have an invalid upload status. You click on this details button, and it will bring up another page that gives you some more detail as to why it didn't work when you thought it was going to. So let's say we've clicked on that details button. This is what we should see now. Each file that generated errors upon processing will be listed with a red failed status under the status column. So any one of them, again, as I mentioned before, like there's going to be 5 files that are going to be uploaded in this. All 5 of them have to have that valid status for it to work, for all of them to go up there. If any one of them, even if only one of the 5 files contain errors, that one file will prevent the entire data set from going up in there. Okay, so we can drill down even more, which I'll show here in a minute, but by clicking on the view error link under the action column to see the list of errors that was generated for each file. So this is an example where all 5 of the files failed. That's not usually what I see, to be honest with you. Usually when a county is attempting an upload, 3 or 4 of the files work just fine, and then 1 or 2 of them didn't. So this is a bit of a unique example here where all 5 of them failed. But then for each file that failed, you could get information about why each one failed by clicking on this view error link over here on the side. What that's going to bring up is some much more specific information that your software vendor can then use to get you new files that hopefully won't have those errors with them. So each SDF record, when you click on that view error link, will be listed along with the description of the error. Now, it's possible that certain SDF IDs may be listed more than once if that record contains multiple errors in it. So it will list out all of the different errors that have occurred. Sometimes there will be multiple errors for just one record in there. Please note that you may need to click on the next button at the bottom right-hand corner to see a complete list of errors. It only is going to show, I don't know exactly how many it shows on the first screen, like maybe 10, but then you'll need to hit that next button if there's more errors than that. What you want to do there, or what I highly recommend, is if this happens, capture a screenshot of the errors shown for each file and share that info with your sales disclosure software vendor. That's something they're going to be able to look at. It's going to be very helpful to them. If that if they are confused about something and don't know how or what that error is telling them, they're welcome to contact us, and we can certainly help in that situation. But I would think that most of the time you can take a screenshot and that should be all that you need to do there. So this is what I'm talking about. This again is if you were to click that view errors button, so that last link, it's going to list out the particular sales data record and then list the type of error that occurred there for every single one of these. So what I recommend doing is you take this, you grab a screenshot of this particular section, send that on to your software vendor, and hopefully that's all they need to then get you some new files to attempt another upload. Okay, the final piece of this is that everything needs to be affirmed into the system after it has been entered. So upon completion of your review and validation process, and then a successful upload of all sales for a particular month, we need you to affirm that you have uploaded the complete reviewed and validated data set for that month. Affirming a particular month it's real easy. I'm going to walk you through the process here, but that's something that we have to have in place before the data analysis division begins its review of your sales data. It's kind of like there's an old TV show that I used to watch with my family, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and he wouldn't lock in your answer until you said, is that your final answer? That's kind of what this is. It's you, or it's the county telling DLGF, yes, this is my final answer. I've submitted everything that I need to here for this month. I'm going to affirm that this month's files are in. So it's important there that all 12 months, excuse me, all 12 months worth of sales must be affirmed before the data analysis division can start. So please make sure that that is done, again, by that February 1st deadline. Not only has everything been uploaded, but everything has been affirmed in the system so that we can get to work on going through and reviewing those different data files that have come in. So again, I'm going to, as I promised, walk you through that process. So there will be a button there. It'll be right next to the upload button on the file screen. So if we were at the home is where we get signed in, you click on your county, it's going to go to the upload file. There will be a file upload, and then there's also an affirmation button. You click on that affirmation button, and it's going to take you to a list of all 12 months for the calendar year of 2023. For each month, what needs to happen is you need to click on that edit button first. Once you've clicked on that edit button for the applicable month that you want to affirm, there will be a little box that shows up here under the affirmation column. That will not be checked. That's something that you need to then go up and click on with your mouse. Click on that to check it and affirm it. Then you click save. Once you've done that, that will show up in the system, and then it'll be on another application that we can see over here at the data team that has been affirmed, and we get kind of a green light saying, all right, January is good to go. Now we need to wait for all of these other months to make sure that that's been affirmed in the system. Once that's been applied, a date and a timestamp will appear up here for the applicable month. And again, in order for us to begin our review process, we need to get through all 12 of those. Okay, I've completed the second section. I'm going to take a drink of water here and we'll start the third one. Okay. So this final part talks about what the DLGF is going to be doing with the data files that we've received from the counties and how this whole process works on our side when we are going through the data files and reviewing them and trying to get back the feedback to each of the counties. So the SDF compliance review process, there's two main things, or two primary questions there that we are trying to answer in this review process. Number one, have all excuse me. Have all the sales for the specified conveyance period for all of the previous year, has that been submitted? Are there any gaps in the data? Was a month missed? Or was there like the last 10 days of December, was that not included in there? That's examples we've seen before. We're going to be checking that first. Does it make sense that do we have all of the sales specified, or are we starting to see gaps somewhere in there? And then the second thing that we'll focus in on is, does the SDF data submitted appear to be complete and accurate? And this goes back to kind of some of the pre-work that I tasked with, or the counties with, the internal validation stuff before you are submitting the data to us. Are the buyers and the sellers listed? Is the sales price listed? Are the taxing district and parcel number included? Those are the kind of things that are going to show up on our checks that are going to count against you when determining a compliant or non-compliant status. I think I mentioned this earlier, that it's helpful to consider the Data Analysis Division's review of the sale data as the primer, if you will, in the ratio study approval process. This really helps make sure that the underlying foundation of the sales data that's going to be used in the ratio study is rock solid. The Data Analysis Division's review does not answer the following questions, however. We're just kind of getting things ready for the ratio study review. So we're not going to be answering questions as to, like, should a certain sale be marked valid for trending? Should a certain sale be included in a ratio study? That's going to be the assessment division. If that's a particular question that you have, I would encourage you to reach out to your assessment field rep. But our review is not going to necessarily answer those questions for you. So when the Data Analysis Division completes its review of the county sales data, we're going to email you back, and that will include 2 documents with the findings that we made. The first document will be the Sales Issues Workbook. That will be an Excel file that you receive that provides an itemized breakdown of the records that contain potential errors based on our compliance checks. So that one goes a lot more into the weeds and give you like a line-by-line breakdown of all of the different things that popped up on our tests that we ran. The other file that you'll receive, the Sales Disclosure Compliance Report, that's going to be a PDF that provides more of a summary analysis of the various checks, that we performed on the submitted data, along with an official compliance status. So again, whether what everybody's going for is to get that green compliant status. Once you have that, you're essentially done with this part, and we can start getting ready for the ratio studies coming up. So that sales issue workbook, that Excel file, will contain up to 6 separate tabs, which provide a list of sales records that generated errors. Okay, and these, sometimes they're absolutely certainly errors, and sometimes it's just a possibility of an error, and that's something that we need to, again, go back and forth with the county on to make sure that it's actually an error or not. But we try to capture as many as we can there initially. These 6 tabs across the bottom, and I should clarify something up there. I said up to 6 separate tabs. We're not going to include a tab if there are no errors there. So these 6 tabs will only populate if we catch errors in those particular sections. So the first section there, the missing critical data, that is a huge one. If there's stuff that's missing from these entries, that's kind of a red flag. We need to get to the bottom of that. So that's going to be an extremely critical, pardon the pun, part of the process. But then there's 5 more of them: the single parcel sale duplicates, the multi-parcel sale duplicates, valuable consideration. We call it part 2, but it's like so just some checks that are hopefully especially helpful for county assessors, as well as some additional checks there in part 3 that are more designed for county auditors and information for them. So as I mentioned, that missing critical data tab contains data that may be missing or mismatched between the sales files that we've received when we're comparing that against the parcel file that we received back in the fall. So checks are performed on both single and multi-parcel sales, but they're then separated out on the spreadsheet. And again, when we get to the compliance report, you're going to see this is where the things can get like if we have too much missing critical data, that's a automatic failure in terms of getting a compliant status. You will be automatically deemed non-compliant if we have too much missing critical data within the data files that we're getting. The single parcel sales duplicate tab contains sales that are possible duplicates. Generally, these sales will contain different SDF ID numbers, but have the same parcel number, conveyance date, sales price, along with buyer, preparer, and seller listed. So that happens sometimes where it's just an error, which basically got copied over, but different parcel number, or rather the same parcel number, but potential duplicates. The multi-parcel sale duplicates tab contains possible duplicate records, just like the single one, the duplicate parcels tab, but this one will refer only to multi-parcel sales. The valuable consideration tab contains a list of parcels that have a sales price greater than 0, but are marked as no for valuable consideration. Obviously, that can pop up a time or two. And then the final pieces here are the part 2, the county assessor check tabs contains the records where there are possible discrepancies between items marked in part 1 of the SDF compared to the information listed in part 2 of the SDF. Like an individual SDF that contains multiple parcels located in different taxing districts. That's something that could ping on that particular tab. And then the last one here, the 6th tab, is again designed a little bit more for the county auditors. It contains records where there are possible discrepancies between those records marked as requiring a state sales disclosure fee, and then the amount of fee that was actually collected for that. So. Here is a snapshot of the compliance report that you will receive. So again, what I kind of went through there in the previous slides was the different tabs you will see in the Excel file. This is a snapshot of the PDF file that you will get that has the summary level information for you to go through. I'm going to take each one of these sections here and kind of break them down a little bit and go through them individually, but this is what it will look like as a whole. It'll be a couple pages long usually when we fit it all in there. So here we go. This is the first 5. This is the very top section of the report, and probably the one that is, I think most people will look to right away, or is the most relevant, is going to be right there in box number 3. That is we will list very plainly there your sales compliant status. So hopefully what you're going for obviously is to achieve a compliant status in this review process. That is where you will see that sort of loud and clear. If it is non-compliant, then there's going to be some additional corrections that are required that we need to get that fixed and in place there before we can move on to the ratio studies. So this will be kind of like the header piece of the sales report that you get. We try to provide some additional commentary there in lines 4 and 5, or in boxes 4 and 5. But as you can see, the big piece of information there is in box 3. All right, the next few lines in this report, lines 6 through 21. Give a summary level analysis of the Excel file, specifically the missing critical information tab. So we're trying to summarize here on the PDF for you, and then in the Excel file, again, we take you line by line and let you see all the exact errors and everything that we saw. This provides a summary of everything that's going to be on that missing criticals tab in the Excel file, line 6 through 21. And I'm sorry I didn't get all the way down to line 21. I wanted to fit it in a way that we could make sure that we saw it or could see everything here on this page. Probably the most, well, not the most, but like the where we got tripped up the most last year was in that box 11. So this is a requirement that the state has. This is what we had initially in our review process back in this January and in February. We want to see the percentage of state sales disclosure fee revenue reported by AOS, or the Comptroller's Office, compared to what was collected based on all submitted sales, the value in line 10 and divided by the value in line 9, essentially kind of right above it, those two boxes right above it. We need, when we take those two numbers and divide them, we're obviously perfectly would be 100%. Now that's pretty rare that that happens where it's just perfect like that. I've seen it happen before, but we allow a tolerance level to go as low as 90% and up as high as 105%. Obviously, there can be some discrepancies there in that reporting, and we allow for some of those or a small level of that discrepancy. But if it's outside of that window of 90 to 105%, that is where we start to talk about being in a non-compliant status. That is also where we start making, or we go through the data a little bit more closely and use the fee fund report that I was talking about earlier that needs to be submitted in early January, or we ask for it to be submitted in early January. It really helps speed up our process if we have that available to us so that we can check against all of the different revenue that was reported and are able to kind of figure out why that number is off, if it is off. That will help, again, speed up that process and potentially get through this compliancy check a little bit easier. So there'll be some other information here that will be provided that talks about that missing criticals data tab. Again, that goes all the way down there to line 21. Now, line 21, excuse me, may be the most important piece of the entire, other than like your overall status of being compliant or non-compliant. Line 21 is going to basically determine your compliancy. It's the percentage of overall total number of records that have missing critical data, or the percentage rather. So you can math that out by using the numbers above, like the 59 and 2 in the single and the multi-parcel sales. You add that up, you get 61. The 61 divided by that total number up top, the 10,328, 61 divided by that number is going to give you that 0.6%. So that's what we're looking for there. If that percentage number is ever over 2, it's automatic that we need a sales. We need things to be fixed before we can give a compliant status to the sales data set. So keeping that under 2% is extremely important. And again, that can happen, or that can be mitigated some by doing an internal review of your data before that gets submitted to us. Lines 22 through 24 focus on the tab in the Excel file for the single parcel duplicates. Lines 25 through 27 focus on the multi-parcel duplicates. 28 and 29 up there kind of at the top of this slide are focused on the valuable consideration tab of the Excel file. 30 through 36 is that part 2, like additional checks and information for the assessor's office. 37 through 40 focuses on that final section. We call it part 3, the section for the auditor. And then we also try to provide some additional information for the analysis for the match on the parcel file that happened in the fall, and how that's all worked out in there. Finally, this last piece is it doesn't have any effect on your compliance status for the data side of the review, but it helps with giving you a heads up on how things are looking for your ratio studies review. So this valid for trending section specifically boxes 46 and 47, are flags for if you might have trouble when you're submitting this for your ratio studies. Specifically for box 46, if that is something that is under 35%, that's usually something that you're going to want to take a look at before submitting for your ratio studies. It can give you a heads up on a potential issue. So good box to check, but this really is just for informational purposes. That box 47 then, the threshold there is 55%. So if you are below a 55% number, that will show up as, I think, kind of a red highlight that is probably something that you need to take a look at before submitting for ratio studies. Okay, finally, if a county's sales data is deemed non-compliant by the Data Analysis Division, the county must review the possible errors, make any necessary corrections, and then resubmit the sales data for another round of reviews. Again, we can avoid this whole thing if we are able to achieve a compliant status right off the beginning. If we're non-compliant at some point, there's some back and forth that has to occur to make sure that we get a clean set of sales data and you pass your sales review process. When you have that compliant status, this essentially is a green light for the assessment division to proceed with its review, and then the ultimate approval of the county submitted ratio studies. So that's something that we pass on to the assessment team. We're in communication with them. As soon as as soon as a county has completed their sales review process with us and they're compliant, that's when we let the assessment team know that the ratio study could be started. I'm going to try and go through this really quick because I think I'm running out of time, but I wanted to let folks know that there is an online search database available to the general public through that same website that we upload things to, the Gateway Sales application. You don't need to sign into it to be able to use this search feature, and it will include all of the sales that have happened, I think, from 2021 onward for that first link. We have a separate link there, that's the second bullet point in the middle, that holds the older information from the 2008 to 2020 time frame. Those can still be accessed. It's a older link, but it works just fine, and I think it's on the that first page as well. Unfortunately, for any sales records prior to 2008, we don't have that information here at the DLGF level, or we don't have that housed in a database. Individuals who are seeking that historical data, we're going to ask them to follow up with directly with the applicable county to inquire if they still have access to that information, because that's something that the DLGF does not currently have in our database. All right, I think I made it with about 4 minutes to spare. If there's any questions that have come up, I'm happy to answer them now, or like I said, I'm happy to email back, and you know, if we're not able to answer the questions, I'll make sure I get them answered for you at some point. I don't know if I see any in here, Jenny. Do you know if we've had any questions pop up?
Nope, we don't have any questions right now. Okay. So I think that, I don't remember if you recall any of the questions that we had from this morning. If you want to share any of those, but we will hold for just a few minutes so that if anybody does have questions, they can ask those before we conclude our webinar here. I'll go ahead and do some housekeeping items while we wait if there's any questions. Just as a reminder, I will send out an email later this week that'll include the presentation, the video, the survey, and the CE form. If you would like CE, you will need to self-report that on the form, and then if you're an assessor, send that to Donna here within our office. Or you can, if you are not an assessor and you want CE credit for this, please contact your association and find out what the best avenue is for you to record your CE. But you can get 1 hour CE for the webinar today. We are planning for the 2024 webinars. If you have any feedback, that we do greatly appreciate that. In the survey, there's a spot for putting in upcoming or topic ideas that you would like to see for upcoming webinars. We do look at those from the entire year and try to plan things out that are engaging for our attendees, as well as important information that we have. And we do have one more webinar coming up for the end of this year, and that's on December 13th, and that is the agricultural land assessments. Barry Wood will be giving that presentation. So that is always a popular topic. That was one of the ones that was recommended last year, and so we wanted to include that. So if you have any other topics, please don't include those in the survey. You're also welcome to email me and just send me any topic ideas. Be happy to put those into our list and try to come up with something that's workable for everybody and based on the suggestions. So I don't see any other questions, Josh, so I think we can go ahead and conclude it for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Josh or I. We'll get those questions answered for you. We do appreciate your time in participating today, and hopefully we'll be able to see you in December at our next webinar. Thanks so much for joining today.